I found out my marriage was over while I was still under anesthesia. Woke up in a hospital bed, half delirious, trying to piece together why there was a tube in my arm and why my chest felt like someone had dropped a cinder block on it. The nurse told me I'd had a cardiac event. Minor heart attack, technically. Stress-induced, they said. Not lethal, not this time, but a warning. You're lucky, she smiled, squeezing my wrist. This could have been much worse. I nodded, thanked her, and blinked up at the speckled ceiling tiles. They'd sedated me before the stent procedure. Something about an irregular rhythm, a dangerous spike, a moment where things went dark. The tech monitoring my vitals said I flatlined once, said I was gone for 38 seconds. While I was unconscious, my wife emptied our accounts. I got the text 2 hours after I came to. Just a single message from her, no greeting, no inquiry about how I was doing, just a screenshot of our checking balance. $0. Below it, she wrote, I deserve this after everything I've put up with. Take care of yourself. That was it. No goodbye, no apology. Just a cold, efficient theft of everything we'd built. My name is Graham Ellis. I'm 41st, senior systems engineer at an IT firm in Omaha. 14 years in the same office, in the same corner cubicle, answering tickets and babysitting networks for people who don't know the difference between a reboot and a reload. I've been married to Celia for 10 years. No kids, no debt, just a mortgage and a quiet little house on Ridgeway Lane that I spent 2 summers renovating with my own hands. We were stable, or so I thought. Not exciting, maybe, but stable. The company gave me a heart attack. Celia gave me an ending. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Then I tapped out a single response. No follow-up. No demands. No outrage. People think heartbreak is loud. They expect shattered dishes, screaming in parking lots, gasps in courtrooms. But that's not how it is. Not always. Sometimes heartbreak is a man alone in a hospital bed, staring at a text message like it's written in a language he used to know. The doctor came in and gave me the rundown. Cholesterol fine, blood pressure a bit high, but the real culprit, cortisol, stress. He asked if I had anyone picking me up when I was discharged the next day. I lied, said my wife would be there. When he left, I picked up my phone and called my younger brother, Matt. We hadn't talked much lately. Different lives. He teaches high school math, married his college sweetheart, lives 2 blocks from the same neighborhood we grew up in. I told him what happened. The heart attack, the money, Celia. There was a long pause. Then he said, You want to stay with me for a bit? I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Yeah, I'd appreciate that. The next morning, I got dressed slowly, like a man putting on his own skin for the first time in weeks. My clothes smelled like antiseptic and resignation. When Matt picked me up from the hospital, I didn't say much, neither did he. That's the thing with brothers. Sometimes silence is the kindest language. On the way to his place, I thought about the week before the collapse. The dull ache in my chest I'd been ignoring. The tension, headaches. The anxiety that made me wake up at 3 a.m. every other night. I thought about Celia, how she'd barely looked up from her phone that last morning we had coffee together. I'd been heading out for another long day at the office. She'd said, Be safe, without meeting my eyes. She'd already made her move. That night, lying on Matt's guest bed, scratchy comforter, ceiling fan wobbling slightly overhead, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even feel betrayed, not in the traditional sense. I just felt tired. Tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix. Because this wasn't just the end of a marriage. This was the unraveling of an entire identity. Husband, provider, builder, protector, gone in one message. And yet there was a part of me, small but steady, that wasn't broken. The part that knew how to reboot a failed server from command line. The part that knew how to diagnose problems other people couldn't see. That part of me was already coming online again, quietly. Celia thought she'd taken everything. But she didn't know who she married. The first thing I did was nothing. I sat in Matt's spare bedroom for 2 days, eating toast and drinking whatever coffee he made. I didn't check my email, didn't look at the bank again. I didn't even speak much. Matt didn't push. He just kept the lights low, kept the house quiet. And I waited for the white noise in my head to settle. I'm not impulsive, never have been. I'm the guy who reads warranty cards, backs up his data 3 times, and still prints a hard copy of his resume, just in case. So when Celia detonated our life, I didn't flinch, I went still. And in that stillness, I started taking inventory. First thing I did was pull my old ThinkPad out of storage, the one I used for freelance side gigs, separate from my work laptop. She wouldn't know the login, wouldn't know it even existed. Then I accessed an encrypted archive I hadn't touched in years. Password manager, offline backups, full copies of everything from our mortgage documents to Celia's investment portfolios that I'd helped her organize before she lost interest. I kept backups because that's what you do when you work in IT, when you've seen how quickly things fall apart. I started logging activity. Our joint account had been siphoned in 5 separate transactions over 8 days. 3 of them coincided with days I was working 14-hour shifts on a server overhaul. I hadn't even noticed. The last transfer happened while I was unconscious. That detail sat heavy in my chest. She'd waited until she was sure I couldn't stop her. Cold, precise. Next, I opened a spreadsheet. Something simple, color-coded. I started listing assets in one column, liabilities in another, personal accounts she didn't know about, the modest IRA I'd built before we met, a secondary savings account I kept for tax season, a tiny crypto wallet that had once been a joke and was now worth more than I expected. She hadn't touched those. Celia was greedy, but not thorough. She didn't know how deep I went. She never cared about the details. She just wanted the part she thought she earned. I pulled out the manila folder I'd stashed in Matt's garage years ago. Original copies of the mortgage paperwork, the insurance binders, the trust I created after my dad passed and left me his land in northern Nebraska. Celia hadn't wanted to visit. Too far, too cold, too boring. Good. That meant she hadn't thought to touch it. 2 days after the hospital, I made my first real move. I visited the credit union downtown, not the branch Celia and I used. A different one. I met with a quiet guy named Ron in a gray blazer. Told him I needed to add alerts on all my accounts. Dual authentication, spending limits, fraud notifications. Then I asked if they had internal investigators. He raised an eyebrow. Not unless there's been a crime. There has, I said. You just don't know it yet. Back at Matt's, I logged into our home security system. Still had access. Celia hadn't thought to change the password, or maybe she didn't think she needed to. The feed buffered, then loaded. The house looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. There were shoes at the door I didn't recognize. A coat on the hook I'd never worn. At one point I saw her in the kitchen, pouring wine into 2 glasses. Someone walked by behind her. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing my hoodie. She gave it to him. The one I always wore when I worked late into the night, troubleshooting network outages and VPN issues from the kitchen counter. She gave him that hoodie like it didn't mean a thing. I hit pause, took a screenshot, filed it away. Evidence folder, new directory, personal/collapse. That night I drafted an email to my lawyer friend Tom. We hadn't talked in years, but I knew he handled divorce cases. I didn't send it, not yet, but I started writing. Subject line, need to understand my options. I wasn't angry, I wasn't broken, I was methodical. This was an incident response, like the time a client got ransomware through a corrupted vendor attachment. You don't panic, you isolate the threat, you assess the breach, you build a recovery path. Celia thought I'd be too hurt to act, too slow. What she didn't realize was that my whole life was built around one principle. Disaster is just another form of data, and I'd already started logging everything. A week after the heart attack, I stopped calling it that. In my mind, it became the event. Not a medical condition, not a freak occurrence. Just the moment the old life ended and something colder, sharper began. Matt offered to have me stay longer, said I could borrow his truck if I needed to run errands, said the guest room was mine as long as I wanted. I appreciated it, but something in me didn't want comfort. Comfort had made me soft. Comfort had kept me blind. Instead, I rented a furnished apartment on the south side, month-to-month lease, bare walls, stiff furniture, a mattress that felt like plywood. But it gave me what I needed: space, quiet, and the ability to move unnoticed. I didn't tell Celia. I didn't even change my mailing address. Let her think I'd vanished into grief or shame or whatever story she was telling herself. Let her relax. I wasn't hiding. I was watching. At work, I eased back in slowly. My team had covered for me during the recovery. Patrick, our junior admin, looked both nervous and relieved when I walked through the glass doors of the server room again. I thanked him, kept things polite, said I was taking it easy, said I was mostly recovered. Truth was, I wasn't here to work. I was here to observe. I started noticing things I hadn't seen before. Emails marked confidential that didn't go to me anymore. Projects that had my fingerprints all over them. Code I wrote, systems I patched, now being handed off to other teams without so much as a heads up. Then there was the new consultant, Brian Whitaker, hired 6 weeks ago just before my incident. Supposedly a cloud infrastructure specialist. I'd never seen his name on a meeting invite, but he seemed to be everywhere, always hovering outside project rooms, always smiling too wide, asking too many questions about the systems I built. I checked the logs. His ID had accessed 3 of my core network folders in the week I was in the hospital. Why would a cloud consultant be poking around in firewall configurations? I didn't ask out loud, just opened a new section in my notes file. Anomalies. Internal. Back at the apartment, I couldn't stop replaying certain memories. 3 months ago, Celia insisted on setting up a new joint budget spreadsheet. Said she wanted to be more involved, wanted to understand our finances better. She'd never cared before, but I gave her access. Thought she was just trying. 2 months ago, she asked me to sign a release form for something about the house. Claimed it was insurance-related. I didn't read it closely, just signed. Now I couldn't even remember what it was called. 1 month before the collapse, she started talking about her cousin Jeremy again, the freelancer, who bounced from gig to gig. Said he was in town helping a friend flip a property. Said maybe we should go to dinner with him sometime. I never met him, but I saw the name last week in one of the account transfer logs. J. Benton, property consulting. Property consulting. Right. I started cross-referencing dates. When I was working 60-hour weeks prepping our data center migration, she was taking long self-care weekends out of town, always with friends I never met, always just out of reach. I texted Matt. You remember that party we went to last Christmas at our place? The guy Celia kept talking to by the fire pit. Was that Jeremy? 10 minutes later. Yeah, tall guy, real estate type, wore too much cologne. That him. It was. That night, I sat on the floor of my apartment, staring at a whiteboard I'd set up in the corner. Names, dates, transactions, patterns. It was starting to form a shape. Celia hadn't just left, she'd staged it. Financial separation disguised as budgeting. Legal authorization buried in a fake insurance form. A new guy who just happened to specialize in quick sales. Consultant access at my job at the same time as my collapse. It wasn't a breakup, it was an extraction. The realization hit me like cold air in a server room. I wasn't just dealing with a failed marriage. I was inside a scheme, something that had unfolded around me quietly, professionally, the way good cons always do. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something stir under the surface. Not rage, not heartbreak, focus. That rare, crystalline focus I only get when I'm deep in code, hunting down a bug that shouldn't exist, and knowing, somehow, that someone put it there, This wasn't a story about a man whose wife left him. This was a story about theft. And I was about to write the next chapter. The letter came by courier. Cream-colored envelope, my name handwritten in cursive. That same tight, slanted script Celia used when she was still leaving love notes in my lunch bag. I knew it before I opened it. Divorce papers. Inside, a stack of documents. A bland, detached note from her lawyer. Please see attached filing and asset division proposal. Respond within 14 business days to avoid escalation. I flipped to the asset sheet. It took me less than a minute to see what she was doing. She was claiming half the house, half of the retirement I built before we ever met, half of everything, except the money she already stole. Not a single line item referenced the account she'd drained while I was in the hospital. Like it had never existed, like it was never mine. It was the same feeling you get when you realize a backup failed and you've already formatted the drive. I didn't call her. I didn't respond to the lawyer. I called Tom, the divorce attorney I'd emailed but never followed up with. He picked up on the second ring. "Graham Ellis," he said, already sounding tired. "You ready to talk now?" I was. Over coffee and legal pads in his downtown office, I walked him through the timeline. The transfers, the spreadsheet, the guy in my hoodie pouring wine in my kitchen, the divorce papers that read like a stock liquidation. Tom nodded through it all, scribbling in shorthand. "You got copies of everything?" I handed him a flash drive. Backups, transaction logs, video stills, dates, names. His eyebrows rose. "You work for the NSA?" "IT," I said. "Close enough." He flipped open a new file. "Let's start with the house." Here's what I didn't know. 4 months ago, a refinance application was submitted on the house, not the one I signed. This was a new one, with both our names on the loan, even though Celia never qualified before. The loan was approved for $260,000 at 5.4% APR. Not bad, except it shouldn't have existed. Tom tapped the form. "This signature, it's yours." I looked closer. My name was there, sure, but the R in Graham curled differently. The L in Ellis didn't loop right. Subtle, but not mine. She forged it. "Or someone did it for her," Tom said. "We'll subpoena the notary, track the filing. Fraudulent refinance on a shared asset filed without your knowledge, it's a felony. Could also tank the divorce settlement. And if we're lucky, freeze the account holding the cash." I sat back, the weight of it pressing down. She forged my name to pull equity out of our home, my home, and then wiped the accounts while I was recovering from a cardiac arrest. This wasn't spite. This wasn't hurt feelings. This was criminal. "You okay?" Tom asked. "No," I said, "but I'm awake now." That night I logged into the home security system again. Most of the feeds were quiet. Then, around 11:07 p.m., a car pulled into the driveway. Not Celia's. A rental, plate traced to Kansas. The man who got out wasn't Jeremy. He was younger, different building, looked military, or ex-military, from the way he moved. 30 minutes later he left. But not before heading into my garage. I checked the camera angle. He opened a storage cabinet, the one where I kept backup drives, my father's tools, tax records. He took something. I couldn't tell what. That's when I knew. This wasn't just about greed. This was a partnership. Celia wasn't just cheating. She was complicit. Maybe it started as an affair, but somewhere along the way she learned to love the idea of burning the whole house down, as long as she walked away with the insurance money. I downloaded the clip, emailed it to Tom with the subject line, "New development. Possible accomplice." The next morning, a detective from the Financial Crimes Unit called. Tom had looped them in. "Mr. Ellis, we've reviewed the documents your attorney submitted. Based on the forgery and the fund withdrawals while you were incapacitated, we're opening a formal investigation. Can we schedule a statement?" "Absolutely," I said. "What do you want out of this?" she asked. "If it goes criminal, it gets messy." I thought about that for a second. About Celia, barefoot in the kitchen. About the way she used to hum while she made pasta. About the years I gave without asking for anything back. "I want the truth on record," I said, "and I want her to know I saw through it." The detective paused. "That's not justice, you know." "No," I said, "but it's a start." I hung up, stood by the window of the apartment, and watched the city move below. I had nothing left of the life we built, but I still had my name, and my proof, and a mind built for systems. They'd underestimated the wrong man. By the end of the second week, I stopped thinking about it as a divorce. Divorce was a word for heartbreak, for irreconcilable differences and slow unravelings. What I was in wasn't that. This was extraction. This was a coordinated exit. I'd seen ransomware attacks with cleaner trails than what Celia left behind. Tom filed a motion to freeze the house equity, citing the forged signature and suspected fraud. The judge granted it within 48 hours. A small win, but enough to make Celia's lawyer blink. She hadn't responded directly yet, just silence and a missed deadline, which made me nervous. Because silence usually means the next move's already in play. I needed more than legal process. I needed understanding, motive, pattern. So I did what I do best. I started tracking data. I ran Celia's name through every open-source database I could legally access: social media, tax records, property registries. I knew her email aliases, her preferred usernames. I followed digital breadcrumbs like I'd followed packet loss through broken firewalls. And that's when I found something strange. 2 months before she left, Celia registered a new LLC in Nebraska, Reed and Harper Property Consulting. She never mentioned it. No social media posts, no invoices. But the business had one client according to the state's filing, Ellis Home Improvements. Our house. I never authorized that. I called Tom immediately. She set up a shell company, used it to fake invoices and pull equity out of our house under the guise of repairs and consulting fees. He whistled softly. She's bold, or reckless. I scrolled down the registry page and felt my stomach turn. Business manager, Jeremy Clayton. There it was. The missing link. Not just the guy in my hoodie, not just the one who'd filled my wine glass like he owned the place. Jeremy was part of the structure, the scaffolding around the lie. Tom called in a favor with a private investigator, a guy named Marcus, ex-cybercrimes. Quiet, tactical. Didn't say much at first, but after I handed him my flash drive and logs, his eyebrows raised. "Most clients come in with hearsay," he said. "You came in with timestamps." 2 days later, Marcus called. "She's done this before." I sat up straighter. "What?" "Jeremy, too. I found 2 other women Celia's been in contact with over the last 3 years. Same pattern. Both were married to guys in high-income, high-stress jobs. Both had sudden relationship breakdowns and mysteriously lost their homes and joint funds after they were hospitalized or filed extended leaves from work. And Jeremy, he's connected to at least one of the husband's properties. Same contractor licensing firm. Same fake consulting company. Different name, different state. It hit me then. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a playbook. Get close to someone with something to lose. Establish trust. Wait for vulnerability. A surgery, a deployment, a burnout crash. Use that moment to move assets, alter paperwork, vanish behind the shield of legal ambiguity. It was a con, but it wore the face of intimacy. A crime that left no fingerprints, just initials on a dotted line and a man staring into the abyss of his own assumptions. Marcus dropped a final bomb before hanging up. "They're planning to liquidate." "What do you mean?" "There's a property listing pending on your house. They're trying to sell it before the equity freeze hits the system. It's set to go active in 2 days." I stood in the middle of the apartment, heart thudding like distant thunder. For a second I felt lightheaded, the same way I did the night I collapsed. I put both hands on the kitchen counter, breathed. They were going to try and erase me, take everything I'd built, sell it off, and disappear into some new life, some next victim. No, they weren't. I pulled up my security system. Still had access. I rewound the feed to earlier that afternoon. Celia and Jeremy standing in the living room with someone in a navy blazer. Realtor. I took screenshots, logged the time, sent it to Marcus and Tom. Then I pulled out the spare phone I kept in a locked drawer, the one synced to the smart home system that Celia thought I'd shut off months ago, and I recorded a message. Hi, you've reached Graham Ellis, legal owner and mortgage holder of this property. If you're receiving this message, you've been misled. This house is under legal dispute, and any attempt to purchase or transfer its title will be met with criminal charges. Thank you, and have a wonderful day. I set it to autoplay on the living room speakers anytime the front door opened. Passive, clear, unavoidable. Let them try to explain that to their realtor. That night, I sat with a glass of whiskey, staring at the whiteboard I'd built like a detective's murder wall. Names, arrows, bank accounts, alias emails, IP logs. This wasn't heartbreak. This was architecture. She thought I was weak because I loved her. She thought I wouldn't notice because I trusted her. She thought I was just another quiet man with a soft heart and no backbone. But what she forgot was what I do for a living. I find breaches. And then I close them. I didn't knock. I walked through the front door of the house I still legally owned and stood in the center of the living room, watching Celia recoil like she'd seen a ghost. Jeremy froze mid-step in the hallway. He was carrying my toolbox, my damn toolbox, the one my father gave me before he passed, the one with my name carved in the handle. He set it down like it burned him. Graham, Celia said, her voice brittle. You can't just walk in here. I can, I interrupted, calm as a reboot. Still my house. Still my name on the deed. Still my name on the mortgage. Still the guy who paid for this floor you're standing on. And legally? I held up my phone, opened the audio recorder. Still well within my rights to record every word you say. Jeremy shifted, his mouth opening. Probably to tell me I was being dramatic. So I dropped it. The flash drive. Right there on the coffee table between them. Everything, I said. Every document. Every transaction. Every signature you forged. Every alias you filed under. Every one of your real estate scams cross-referenced to Reed and Harper, LLC. It's all here. Oh, and the notary you bribed? Cooperating with the state. Celia's face lost its color. She reached for the flash drive. I put my foot on it. Jeremy started to move, then stopped when he saw the look in my eyes. I wasn't bluffing. I wasn't hoping they'd feel guilty. I wasn't here for closure. I was here for war. I knelt, picked up the flash drive again, and dropped it into my coat pocket. You'll both be receiving formal notices from the State Attorney General's office within the week. There's a federal task force that's very interested in how you laundered money through shell property flips. Oh, and if you're thinking about selling this place? I pointed to the living room camera. The system's already flagged the footage to law enforcement. Any attempt to transfer ownership triggers an alert. Celia's voice came out small. Graham, please, we can figure something out. You figured it out already, I said. When you emptied the accounts while I was flatlining in a hospital bed, when you put my name on a fake refinance form and sold off my future, when you walked some random bastard into my house and let him wear my hoodie like I never existed. Her mouth opened, closed. Jeremy stepped forward again. You don't have proof, I cut him off with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. I have enough proof to end you. He didn't speak again. I turned to leave, but stopped at the doorway. Looked back once. You could have just asked for a divorce, Celia. I would have signed the papers, given you half, walked away clean. She looked down at the floor. But you wanted all of it. You wanted to leave me with nothing. thinking I'd crawl away quietly while you sold the life we built to the highest bidder." She still said nothing. I shook my head. "You forgot who I am." And with that, I walked out. Back at the apartment, I opened my laptop and uploaded everything to a secured cloud directory. Time-stamped, encrypted, mirrored to Tom, Marcus, and the state investigators. Then I sent an anonymous tip through the whistleblower channel the FBI provided. Jeremy Clayton, alias Records, Reed and Harper Property Consulting. Suspected multi-state fraud. Attach. Proof.zip. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't need to. I wasn't worried anymore. I'd done what I set out to do. Expose them, not for revenge, not really, for truth, for clarity, for that sacred stillness that comes when you finally say, "I see you for who you are, and I'm not afraid anymore." The next morning, Tom called. "Graham," he said, "the state picked up the case. Formal charges are being drafted." "Good." "And there's something else," he added. "Your house?" Turns out Celia tried to file a quitclaim deed last week, moving full ownership to her LLC. The filing's already been revoked, fraudulent signature, caught by the title office. I laughed for the first time in weeks. Not out of joy, more like relief, like exhaling a weight you didn't know you'd been holding. "They're unraveling," Tom said. "She's reaching out to her lawyer every hour. Jeremy's dropped off the radar. We'll hit discovery hard next. You've got them cornered." "Let's finish it," I said, but inside I already felt it shifting. I wasn't fighting for the past anymore. I was clearing the way for what came next. It happened on a Tuesday. Jeremy was arrested at his condo across town. Wire fraud. Identity theft. 2 counts of conspiracy to defraud a financial institution. The agents didn't knock twice. Celia was served a summons the same afternoon. I wasn't there to see it, but Tom said she cried. Not the kind of crying you do when you're hurt. The kind that comes when the ground gives out and you realize you can't fake your way out this time. 3 days later, her lawyer contacted us with an offer. Full forfeiture of the house, restitution of stolen funds, and a signed affidavit confirming the forgery, in exchange for no press charges. I told Tom I'd think about it. "Do you want to bury her?" he asked. "No," I said. "I just want it on paper. I want her to know I could have, and chose not to." He nodded. "That's power." The judge signed off on the agreement the following week. The house came back to me. The money, too. What was left of it. Celia moved out before dawn. She didn't leave a note. I didn't expect one. Jeremy pled out. 8 years, no parole. No one came to speak on his behalf. I walked through the house that night, empty rooms, quiet floors, and stood in the kitchen where it all began. No drama, no final monologue, just me, still standing. Spring came late that year. I repainted the living room, tore out the wine rack, changed the locks, even though I didn't need to. Some nights I still woke up expecting to hear her in the kitchen. But the silence wasn't painful anymore. It was clean. Mine. I kept the house, sold the ring, bought a second-hand motorcycle and started taking weekend rides west, chasing roads with no reception. I'm not the same man I was, but I'm not bitter. Some things have to break before you realize what you're made of. And I'm still here, still building, just differently now.